welcome to Discover Energy Walk. Stop making me laugh. So I'm so lucky, and if you're not on the YouTube, you can't see that I have already HoFan, and HoFan Chow was already a guest, and we've just been chatting like off camera, as it were, and off podcast, and over the weeks and months, and I shared my book with her, and she gave me some really useful feedback, and we said like, okay, it's Discover Energy Work. So we just said this like 5 minutes ago. So it's Discover Energy Work. But what is energy work? Yeah. And so HoFan doesn't need an introduction from me, apart from she's fantastic, because you've already heard her podcast. And if you haven't, go back and listen to it. It's a great story. So how are you doing today, HoFan?
I'm really well, Richard. It's great. And I love that you're in a cafe with that background.
Yeah, I mean, it needs must. Yeah, I had a very nice chat with Katie Larson a couple of days ago, and Dr. Katie. Yeah, she's very proud, and she's rightly very proud to be have a PhD in transformational learning. And what happened was it cut off, and I felt like the connection wasn't very good, and I'm like, I think I've got to weigh it up, like disturbance from, somebody making noise with a coffee machine, or the connection not being very good. I'm like, I think the coffee machine's not as bad as like somebody
and it's
crackling.
kind of fun, right? People know you're on site and it's live and happening. This is live.
Yeah, I don't have a sound studio. I don't have, camera 4 come in, can you come in close on me? It's just me. So yeah. And I love your halo. I mean, you got quite a nice,
This is a tapestry given to me by my grandma, right? So yeah.
Oh, well, that's nice. It's like ancestral support, and it's so
cosmic.
Yeah, it's cosmic. And I'm in Om Garden, so here's a shout out for Om Garden Cafe. I have to. They've sponsored their free Wi-Fi in the cafe, and it's a beautiful cafe in Pi. And literally, it's really a garden. So I'm literally sort of sitting
I see all the green.
Yeah, it's
nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, what is? And I've got to ask you, because I mean, I've got my own ideas, but to get the ball rolling, what is for you energy work as opposed to other things? Yeah, not energy work. Yeah.
Well, I feel like everything is energy, right? There is energy that most people are familiar with, like electricity, or I don't know, labor, like physical labor, like that kind of energy. But I think what we tend to talk about when we talk about energy work is more the subtle energy, the range of energy, the chi, or the different levels of energy that people in their everyday life may not be exposed to, right? And so I feel like we're talking about that range in particular.
It's interesting. You see, I think what we often get caught up in our own words, and I think I was listening to Ingo Swann today. Ingo is passed away, but he was like one of the founders of the remote viewing. And in his book Psychic Literacy, he says, think of energy and force as two different things. And it's very much like energy and intention. So although we say energy work, a lot of it's like intention work. Do you know what I mean? And they really, like in the Chinese world of formulas, because the Chinese love their formulas, which I actually love. They go, you do this and this and this. Yeah. So energy follows intention, qi sui yi, and then li sui qi. So power follows energy, and energy we say is qi. So I mean, it really is. You could say that whatever you're doing, what's running behind it, it's like the software is your energy work. But sometimes people, I think they get the cart before the horse. You know what I mean? Like that's really the motor which is driving everything we're doing, and then they're just focusing on the material. And I'm like, guys, that's it's the software and the energy and everything. And if that's wrong, yeah, you're going to run into problems, you know, sooner or later, sort of thing.
But do you define energy as chi? Because I feel like chi is just one spectrum of energy as well.
Oh, okay. So yeah, okay. Well, we're going into a little bit of my book, Tao's DNA. So I have a philosophical definition of chi.
Okay.
So if you have the three levels like yin and yang, yeah. So you have if you said what we can feel, the
right.
Okay, that's the yin, yeah.
Okay.
That would be the yang, whatever. It doesn't matter because they're just polarities. Okay, so you said that's the yin. So he said that's the jing, also the material. And then we have at the other end we have an extreme polarity, which is the shen, or the spirit. Now everything in between there, which between what we can feel and what we absolute don't know and cannot feel, is chi.
Right.
Well,
okay.
If we go into the jing, we find the material. If we go into material, the more we go into material, the more we find actually we can't find anything. So actually, it means that
the invisible
of the three, the one which is connected with everything is chi. So for me, chi is a completely all-encompassing term. But if you're talking about qigong or heigong, or you know, where it's really about breath, or you're talking about how can I say, the Chinese medicine qi, or the feng shui qi, then I say, oh, okay, maybe then it's different. But as I say, like, I look at those three things, the three treasures, as a philosophical circular principle, which is usable for absolutely anything.
Okay, no, I buy that. Yeah, I have a very similar kind of hierarchy in the sense that we have the material world, and then we have everything in between, and then there's the source, right? So what you're describing is the spectrum kind of in between the very material and the very the source, which is invisible, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I keep on. I'm in love with Socrates. You know, I know nothing, because in a way he's pointing to the fact that he knows, the fact that he knows nothing, and there is a space in between. And I think that's just so you know, immensely clever. And anyway, it's probably Plato that said it. Yeah, so we don't know that Socrates ever said it, but
well, if you attributed it to Socrates, then
maybe it's just being nice, you know. I don't know.
Who knows?
I'm sure he said
anyway.
it. No, I sort of said he's probably like me, that, you know, says, or some superstar that's got their like catchphrase, I know nothing. Like his catchphrase. But yes, it is interesting. I think,
but that's a huge place. I mean, this is like everything between the material and totally, like, and so the next question is, in this very big space, like, is there a way to systematically talk about it, or to, you know, start to make it more visible, I guess, or more graspable or usable, right?
Well, I think it's, in a way, it's like a creative space, so that we can bring things into this space. As you find, you know, you find pretty much every year that somebody's come up with a new method of energy work. Yeah. Yes. And that's lovely. I mean, that's not a bad thing. It's kind of like showing that, in fact, there may be new aspects to energy which we don't know of appearing all the time. So very much in the same way, like that spectrum of known and unknown, there's this sort of dynamic that's going on. Yeah, I've forgotten the question.
So my question is there a way to talk about it, right? Because it's such a big unknown right now. And
yeah, there is. But so this is interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, just cut you off, shooting you down.
No, that's what
I think it's about psychic, about like illiteracy. So when we are not literate, when we don't know how to, for example, connect with ourselves or connect with our body, know what the feeling is, or to trust ourselves. Like a lot of us are, I mean, I know for me, I gaslighted myself a lot, certainly because of my need to be accepted by other people for my feelings. You know, there's me like feeling an energy over there, or feeling scared, like petrified as a kid. And I was just saying, well, it isn't real. Yeah, it's all fake. But it, you know, obviously it was real, but I didn't, you know, it was so scary to me. And then when I was really confronted, like I was saying, you know, I was beaten over the head with energy until I had to accept it. You know, other people, they have, you know, they just get this little flick and they go, oh, I got it. Yeah, energy exists and it's important. I was beaten over the head, so I must be some stubborn old ass.
Well, I feel like also you come from a culture that isn't so commonplace, commonly talked about in the same way, right? Because in China, I think in Hong Kong, people are just used to this idea of qi in general, because we have Chinese medicine and because we have people in the park doing qigong, right? So I went to Poland to teach Tai Chi, and they were like, we don't get this invisible stuff. But I feel like it is in the common vernacular somewhere, right? Culturally for me. So in that sense, I feel like it was much easier.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, so I think I put this down to Descartes. I'm sorry to be so philosophical, but I put this down to Descartes, because I think, therefore I am. And he just went like material and sort of spirit, as it were. There was like, in fact, material and something, in fact, I don't even know what it was, but I felt like there was no space.
Right.
It's like material and mind, that's it. Yeah. And there was no space in between. And so our culture, which I think before, you know, there's, I think in the olden days, there were, you know, very much the Celtic mythologies and this sort of life force. And you know, that's kind of where the stigma comes. If you say like, you're doing energy work in the UK, at least my friends, and it's probably different. I haven't been there for more than half my life. So it's like you're a witch, and a witch, like you don't need to read that many stories, you know, Snow White, Cinderella, or, you know, I don't know, there's lots and lots of stories where the witch is bad, literally, right? It's like bad, like the Wizard of Oz, it lands on the bad devil, witch, right? So, and very much, if you look at the Bible, you know, you find the doctrine of Jesus is more positive and loving, and the doctrine of Paul is, I'm going to scare you into liking this. Which, not making a judgment on religion, but just saying, well, one is more carrot, the other one is more stick. And a little bit of carrot, but it's like, you're gonna burn in hell unless you do this. So well, it's control too, right? Right. I think you have people that believe that the moment you step one foot in anything which is not praying and, you know, oriented to a god, that they are now on the other side. And of course, like, there's this wonderful playground of, you know, unbelievable depth, which can really, well, I think you'd agree. I mean, it connects you with the divine, with the magical of every moment, you know. And it just made me think of Saint Teresa, because she would levitate, right? And then her fellow nuns would be like trying to pull her down and weigh her down with stones, because they're like, oh no, we're going to be persecuted. This is so typical. This is like, you know more about Saint Teresa than I do, and I probably know some Chinese guy, you know. But you do a lot of connecting with heart, don't you? Right. Yes. Because I'd love to, like, one of the ideas of talking today was to sort of gather some of your experiences with you know, with energy work and what's possible and the transformational effect. And then when you can say, like, well, even things that we've heard that
Right.
they're so close to us. We know it must be true, but we didn't see it with our own eyes. We didn't touch it with our own hands, but we have confidence, we have faith that this really did.
So it's very interesting because I have to explain this to all different types of people, from the very sciencey people, very, very materialistic skeptics, to, people who are, who accept the fact that they're angels and strange things, right? So very often I start very practically by talking about the science of the heart. So the fact that the heart has a huge electromagnetic spectrum that's much bigger than the brain, and that it influences people, which we can tell. I think that's the interesting thing. I think people experience subtle energy all the time, right?
Yeah.
Very often they just don't have a language. So I say, you're in a room and then someone angry walks in, and then of course you feel that anger, right? The whole atmosphere in the room changes. So people have these experiences. So I try to relate those experiences for them. I work with actors, and it's very interesting because actors are very trained to be sensitive, right? But they don't have a language really for subtle energy. But intuitively, they know that if you're totally present with another human being, there is a back and forth that happens, right? And they have a sense of space, because that's what you have to be trained to do, right? You sense that standing in front of a stage is different from standing at the back. You sense that playing to a small theater is different to an amphitheater, right? So
you find them. What I find with actors is they will fill a stage with an energy field,
right?
And if they don't, then in a way they're not. And then you'll have people who are overacting, which they're kind of filling it too much with themselves, instead of like. And actually you can almost feel that some of them, they even send it out into the whole audience, like the whole energy field goes out in the audience. And that's from our perspective, like a good actor is controlling the field on the set.
But the funny thing is, we don't really have a language to talk about it too much. We just kind of ascribe it to talent. Right? It's like, oh, well, you either have it or you don't. Right?
That's Kung Fu, isn't it? Talent is Kung Fu. That's the perfect translation of Kung Fu, the old meaning of Kung Fu, really.
Right.
Yeah,
but the thing is, this sensitivity can be developed. So I've been recently working with actors and trying, I had to rebrand. I was rebranding all my hard work into like developing stage presence, right? Which is about being, it was very, very fun. I did a web kind of workshop with people, which is fun, really, really fun. So, but anyway, the point is, so I started with very basic things like, okay, the science shows us that the heart, the physical heart is very influential. It has a lot of neurons and connections, and actually basically functions as another brain, right? And the influence is much bigger than the brain. So therefore, it makes sense to pay attention to the heart. And then go on.
We've got this. I think scientists are recognizing that the mind is not in the brain.
Right.
That's kind of like science is starting to say, well, we can't say it's in the brain, but we can say the brain's got a big influence, and we find so many neural connections in the gut and so on, and it's like it's like.
Where is consciousness really?
Exactly. We're trying to divide it up, and but I love it. Yes, I mean, obviously, like even in Chinese, psychology is study of the heart or art theory, and if you learn something in Thai, you said it enters my heart. Yeah.
Right.
So it obviously there's no coincidence, and we say off by heart, don't we, in English? So there's no coincidence that mind and heart are deeply connected.
Yes, and the Chinese have always known all our words like center is the middle of the heart, not the brain, right? Happiness is open hearted. It's all really it's all in the heart, and we've known it for ages, and we have the Heart Sutra, blah blah blah, right? So I try to bring people the science to get them recognize, okay, it's important. And then what I share is that when you bring a consciousness to your point of the heart, that the intersection of the torus, the magnetic torus, something interesting happens and you get an experience. And that's the point where I basically have to lead them into that experience. because I can go on forever about that experience of oneness and unity consciousness. But until they experience it, it's just words, right? And yeah, and that's when it becomes experiential. And I try to share that through that.
Yeah, but I think we need to as well. I think we need to talk about that experience.
Right.
You know, I mean, like in the way that it is the big carrot.
Right.
You know, it's like,
it is.
You know,
it really
if you think, I mean, I don't want to bring it. It sounds like I'm bringing it down, but it's like a joygasm. Yeah, there you are. That's
right.
like, it's a joygasm, or it's a lovegasm. Yeah,
right.
It's just like the most incredible experience.
Right.
And if you can, when you can integrate it and realize it's like, it's sort of who you are.
Right.
It's an enormous gift, and in a lot of ways, it's our suffering is when we disconnect from it. You know.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. You tell us about people's experiences when because this is like, you know, do this heart imagery.
Right.
I'm really, I mean, you know, we should do a swap. I'd love to.
Sure,
can we do it online? We should do a
course.
swap.
Yeah,
we
sure,
can come
sure.
and I can come and tell people about it. So, so tell me, what do people report when they've had your heart imagery, or your experience with heart imagery?
Well, I've just finished a 4-day workshop it's called Awakening the Illuminated Heart, and it's funny because it was my first heart workshop, really. So it brings back many memories of like that first experience of going into the heart and just feeling the sense of immense love, right? There's so much love. And I think I've heard for a long time that, of course, we want to choose love over fear, right? Because that, you know, when you're in a good state, then you attract people of a good state, and experiences of a good state. But the question is how? We all want to feel love. Who wants to feel fear, really, right? But it was amazing because it's like, okay, so accessible. And I think it really reset things for me in the sense, I suddenly had a sense, I can trust this universe, right? I can actually just go with the flow of this. And that's all I need to do, right? I think previously there was a lot of, I don't know, I was trying to figure out my life. I was trying to calculate many things, right? And then at this point I was like, oh, okay, that's all I really have to do. I need to stay in my heart, and then I just need to respond to the world.
Okay. So I've got a conundrum for you.
Sure.
So the conundrum is that my experience is, you open your heart, and then and you learn actually, well, I can accept and acknowledge and love all these things, and then there'll be something in your life which goes, and you go, wait a minute, I can't accept that, I can't love that, that's not good.
Sure.
Which is, it's like pre-programmed. It's like this process of opening the heart, and then it's going to get closed because you've done that to an experience. So I feel like that's when we kind of almost give up on the heart and forget, and like, it doesn't work, it's not possible. Whereas actually it is part of this process of
but what I think is that experience, I would say, of God, of that divine, I think became a reference point for me, in the sense of like, okay, yes, life will always have its hurricanes, right? But here is a center point. And right now I might be blown off, but I know there is a point that I can get back to somehow, right? And it will actually help me, because I've experienced how that sensation of, well, I don't know, the wordless experience.
You can't put it into words. I mean, in a way, that's one of the definitions.
Right.
So you can't really put it into words, but I mean, when I'm doing the Wix Way class, one of the basic classes, I would always say, like, well, you get to a point where you know you've finished the work. You're working on healing, and you get a point like, you know, because there's just like, everything's fine. But you can't. Everything fine is not really expressing what it is. It's like, like everything is fine.
I know. But the weird thing is, I feel like once you glimpse that reality, right, there's a sensation that actually the kind of struggle that we have is kind of on the surface. So the metaphor is like we're actors, you know, in a play, right? So there is a sense, I think, where I think more and more as I do more meditation, that reality becomes more anchored in me, right? And so I think even like my sense of, I guess it's very Taoist in that sense, right? The Tao is just the Tao, right? In all its forms. And so even our human conflicts and struggles and etc. are part of the manifestation of the Tao, right? It's not easy, I think, for human beings to accept that. But I don't know, I just get more and more of that sense.
You know, I mean, I hark back to the class I had with Seeing Without Eyes with Michaela. And one thing I really liked during the class, she says, when you feel something is an uncomfortable feeling, please stop calling it bad. Call it interesting. Because once you call it bad, you're starting to cut yourself off from it.
Right, yeah,
and if you call it interesting, you're more susceptible to it. Yeah.
Right.
And you're more curious about it. And
I think so.
I think it's almost like, I think there's certain things, like we can say certain concepts which are quite analogous. I don't know how to say that word.
Analogous?
Yeah, whatever. That word. They're like, they sort of fit in with the Tao. And one is gratitude and thanks, because it seems to be unending and inexpressible. Like I can say thank you to somebody, but I can never really express my thanks. And it's these moments. And really, thanks is almost like a godly thing. And the same with forgiveness. It's like, it's almost like sort of thank you. And, you know, it's like unworthiness and like humbleness. And, you know, it's like when you truly feel forgiveness. And in the same way as love is like, it seems just completely, you know, it seems to be completely everything. And I think these experiences, they really are, you know, powerful. I think that's Ho'oponopono. You know Ho'oponopono.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, like, well, you could say being sorry as well is also kind of like, you know, that. And he kind of mentions these four concepts, and he said you can just use one. It doesn't matter which one you want to use.
Right.
But if you keep on repeating them, then suddenly energy starts shifting. Yeah, so we talked about one really simple form of energy work, which is and yours is heart imagery, connecting with the heart. So what have people said to you after? What have been the changes for people after they've experienced some heart imagery?
Oh, I think it gives them more space, first of all. I think very often when we're functioning from the brain, we feel like everything's a problem, right? Because the brain is a duality and judgment mechanism. So once you return to that unity consciousness, right, you get a sensation that, okay, everything's okay for the moment. Maybe not forever, but right now, this moment is what it is, right? And then that gives people an anchor to come back to when things get stormy, right? So on a very practical level, let's say, I don't know, let's say there were protests in Hong Kong, right? I was like, oh my God, boom, like the collective field is down. It really affects me, okay? So very simply, it's very helpful just to bring yourself back to the state of unity and calm and peacefulness. Like practically, it's useful.
Right. So, you know, can I interject? I think that is like where we get caught up in some sort of duality, like, okay, these are the baddies and I'm the goodies, or we're the goodies, and of course the others think the same thing about themselves. And you get to a state where that's all kind of delusion or illusion.
Yes.
And it's all about something much
Yes.
bigger. And I think that's,
And so you catch yourself in the loops. You're looping. Okay, I'm scrolling across these news messages. I'm driving myself crazy. Okay, I just
yeah,
need to breathe and go back to my heart. Yes, and I think that practice brings a little distance. But I think these are very logical, practical purposes. But the interesting thing about heart imagery is that it was designed as a tool by Tibetan the monks in Tibet for enlightenment, which is to see the ultimate reality. So I think there are many meditation methods like Vipassana, where I don't know, you just watch your breathing and then you sense that everything, all that is a reality. And then you're very suspicious of imagery in Vipassana because it's all those images they would say are illusions.
right.
But heart imagery is very interesting in the sense that they just accept everything is illusion, right? So, well, why not play with the illusion? And so through the process of experiencing these images, which at some point you may experience, just like you may experience a dream as real as our waking reality, right? As real as this, then you start to question the fabric of this reality, right? And the limitations. So in a dream, I'm very fluid, right? I can be a cat, I can be male, female, I can be not human, right? I have this fluidity. But in this waking consciousness, in this dimension, I wake up and I'm a certain age, I'm a certain gender, I have a certain set of experiences, right? That make me the personality that I am. And through acquiring this language of imagery, right? You can see that we experience that things are more fluid. So let's, for example, in a heart imagery, you may become the ocean, you melt into the ocean, become the ocean. And then once you experience that, oh, wow, I can be that expansive, right? And for a moment, I don't know, drop that sensation of being a human being with its physical body, right? That experience, I think, shakes things a little bit looser, right? And also, what it does is it aligns us with the source very vertically. So a lot of imagery techniques out there, for example, NLP, working with your inner child, there are many techniques out there that use images very practically. Like, for example, sports psychology, right? I want to shoot the basket, right? So I visualize myself shooting the basket, and it actually works. It really works.
Absolutely.
Or I don't, and color theory. I don't know. I paint the walls pink, and then the people in prison are happier, right? So on a very practical level, images are very helpful, and they're very helpful because they're encoding for our memory. All our memories are images, or our visioning is in images, really, right? And by images, we also define it not as just visuals, but the whole spectrum of inner sensations. And so, okay, we acquire language. We know it's useful for our everyday life, but the Tibetans have figured out that, okay, actually what we want to do with imagery is to have an alignment with God, right? With the source, with the sensation that we talked about, right? Actually, the sensation is probably a symptom of that alignment. But once we align with it, then healing automatically happens, right? So it's not like therapies where, you have this problem and we use this imagery to solve it. And there are imagery traditions which do that. And there, to some extent, some heart imagery practices can be very useful for certain things, right? But ultimately, the heart imagery tradition really is an alignment with God and source. And then through that, you may have the side effect of healing. But ultimately, what you want to head for is the big prize, which is enlightenment and penetration of this reality.
Oh, lovely. Well, I mean, it sounds like that's very much that concept of align with the divine, align with nature, align, with the universe, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I mean, then say you picking up clairvoyance, or you become able, you heal yourself or whatever, that is a side effect. If it becomes the goal, then you start, it's kind of a little bit more ego led,
exactly, right?
So that's really nice. And one like reflection that I noticed doing the blindfold training with InfoVision. That was like one of my little projects I really enjoyed.
Yes.
I'm taking a little break from it because it's like it's like time, yeah. Was if I saw something, I immediately felt it in my heart. Like I immediately, like I saw something and I would react, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this, I need to calm this down a bit, yeah. Because I need to step into compassion. Because if everything I see, I get this strong reaction with my heart, that I'm never going to be able to see clearly, because I'm going to block myself from seeing things. Yeah.
Yes.
And that was a really, I mean, I'm convinced that was a really powerful lesson, a really useful lesson for me. And I even had a sleepless night last night. Woke up at 3 a.m. and maybe this is like, a little bit clairvoyantly. I went, I'm going to go into my heart, because I do this as well. I've a practice, and I went into my heart as like a tool, and I'm like, I had the most incredible dream afterwards. Like, oh wow, I think that's just released something for me. So so it's just but I'm even more curious to have one of your sessions, and
sure, we can do a swap.
Yeah.
And I think one thing it does is it allows people to be more tolerant of different types of consciousness. Because I think in the modern world, we prioritize a type of productivity consciousness. The very beta brainwave, where, you drink a lot of coffee and you're very awake. And we're trained from school to, be awake, be alert in class, be productive in work. And so very often when people come to the workshops, because it drops people down into the alpha theta waves, they're not used to it. They're like, I feel sleepy, right? And we're like, it's okay to be sleepy. In fact, it's okay to like be in a dream, because some people, they're in a dream state and they actually experience the meditation. And when you say, okay, come back to your body, they're totally there. They're not snoring. And even if they're snoring, it's fine too, because that's what their body needs. Sometimes they just need rest, right? But we try to share that, our society just prioritizes one, but it's just one band in the spectrum of consciousness. And it's so fun to experience the other ones.
It is actually like there is like this tendency to try and like, I'm actually watching Battlestar Galactica. I don't know if you've seen it, but I mean, I look at this, there's this the Cylons are like, they look like humans, but they're robots. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's a good metaphor. So, that they've got this one goal in mind, and they're kind of like angry at their creator, and they want to destroy their creator.
Oh no, that's a total metaphor.
It's totally a metaphor. I mean, it's like, and then they discover love, and they discover that they realize they've made a mistake, and they kind of, I mean, it's it's really sort of Joseph Campbell. They want to return to oneness with their creator, but now the creator's kind of like pissed at them, like not
That's
that
not a
happy
good creator.
Well, no, because the humans are creator, and the humans themselves are imperfect.
Oh no.
And of course, the humans are looking at their own creation and saying, wow, this was made really from an ego space, out of fear and everything else, and now we've created this thing, and it's now become independent, and now it's like it wants to connect back with us, but we want to fight it, and blah blah blah. And it's like, I'm like, wow, I think it's so brilliant. And of course, you have the Cylons keep on being reincarnated, so you can't kill them. You can like try and, it's like, so the metaphor for me is like, you got a problem and you kill it, like without really learning what it was about. Like, okay, it's gonna reincarnate, don't worry, it's okay, it'll be back. you gotta it's like people go into a relationship and they have a relationship problem, and okay, I'm gonna end that, kill that, and then the next relationship, wow, the same thing again. Can you believe it? It's like, it's not changed. Yeah. So but I look at these things. You know, there's so many interesting layers of energy work. And I remember, you know, when I, like 1989 was when I first learned with the Tao practice, and their teacher was, people were going to his clinic, and he was doing acupuncture.
Right.
But he did it by feeling the points. So he didn't like, look at your tongue and take your pulse. He just like look at you, and then he just take a needle out and just stick it through the clothes, like yeah. And people were recovering from diabetes, cancer, you know, all kinds of tumors. Was it arthritis? All, like, unbelievable things. Not everything, like almost. But like fun, like incredible healings. But that's the interesting thing. So the Taoists, they have like for the schools, they have famen, which is the if you're a practicing master, you need a way to earn money, because they wouldn't charge anybody to experience God. Because, like, well, this is yours. Yeah, how can I charge you? It's like, and of course now in society that seems to be okay, but like originally that wasn't okay. And then they say, okay, well, I need a job now, because the Taoists are like the
practical
non-religious Taoists, so the Douga or Daojia, they would be in society. You know, life was about being in society, and he had an incredibly successful clinic with all these healings, and then he would teach people the Tao practice. And then he did charge for that, but I feel like it's interesting, because he would talk also about the different schools. So what I feel like I'm hearing is like the hard imagery is like another school but it's Tibetan origin.
Yeah, well, they say that the imagery tradition was from the Adamic race. So there's a set of alternative history of humankind. I don't know, it's mythical to me. I have no way of verifying it. But according to, let's say, this mythology, the Adamic race brought it down to Earth, and then they went and spread out into different cultures. So there's a stream of imagery, the Kabbalistic tradition that went through the Middle East. There's a stream of Tibetan. There's a stream of what they call Vedic imagery. It's not very present now. The last time it really appeared was through Anastasia in Siberia. And then, of course, the shamans in North America and South America have their own traditions, right? So there are different streams of imagery schools. And the hard imagery, the one I learned from, came through Tibet. Yeah. But they say it's actually beyond Tibet.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me, again, like going back to teachers writing, he said, like, the schools will keep reappearing. So even if they die out, they will reappear, because it's the essence of who we are. Like, there's no way we can lose this knowledge, because it spontaneously appears. It's like Wu Wei. It appears effortlessly. If we can reach that effortless moment, then suddenly it's like the door opens, and we're we're in the door, and it's like, well, there's this world and there's this world, and I appear to be between them.
And they say, actually, for children are much more, imagery comes much more naturally to children. And let's say there's a group of meditators and there's a child there. Very often the child's image will actually swamp everyone else's, right?
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because like the Taoists wouldn't start teaching children until they were at least 9, because and really what I'm thinking now is it's just how children sometimes, in a way, they're left completely alone with their images, and not helped to understand them, to interact with them, to even develop themselves and develop, their other senses,
Yes, and we're taught in mainstream schools that, daydreaming is bad, like, and, we should focus on the important things, right? So, yeah, and even like creativity tests, people just score lower and lower as, they acquire more formal education, which is very sad.
Yeah, I think, was that the Thorndike? Was that the Thorndike experiment? I certainly know that I can't remember the name of the psychologist, but he did this experiment where he had this class of students, and he said, "You've been selected. We've selected the best teachers for you, and you've been selected to excel because you're all high performers, and you're all going to do really, really well." And they went like vertically up. And I think they did even the opposite. And of course, they went like vertically down in performance.
So sad. Right.
Well, yeah, this is the time when like psychologists, they hadn't really learned morals. Sort of Watson, like Watson, what a monster.
Right. Well, at least this was sort of borderline okay, right?
Well,
they have worse experiments.
Yeah,
I mean, just do it for a term and then swap them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I shouldn't say Watson's a monster. Watson was brilliant, but he was trying to bring us down,
right?
Much like scientists does want to do. It like wants to bring it down into mechanics,
right?
And it's way too,
I just find it slow.
puddingy. It's puddingy, it's like it's way too fluid. How do you mean slow?
It's like trying to, I don't know, it's trying to like measure love, right? You're like, okay, the pupils are dilated and your heartbeat has increased, right? But that really does not tell you about the experience of love. And
yes, my friend actually, Hannah, I give a shout out for Hannah. She did her thesis, master's degree thesis in psychology on love. And she thought like there must be loads of research on love.
Right.
There's like almost no research on love. Like psychologists haven't been able to kind of work it out. I can't remember what she how her it was a master's degree, so it was obviously it was obviously a big paper. How it ended, but I mean, like we don't even understand love. Like we
and it's so basic, right?
Yeah, it's so basic, and then we want to understand. It's a bit like science and water. If you want to be taken seriously in science, don't study water because it doesn't follow the rules. Yeah. So, which is like you go, well, isn't that the most important thing to study? Like
70% of us, right?
It's like, yeah, guys, I don't know. It's like you actually should be interested in the mystery. If you're a scientist, you should be like looking where no man has looked before. Yeah.
Right.
But then it's like you said,
but it's too hard, right? And you don't get funding for
yeah, and that is the point, is funding is really, really important. What about, I mean, what have you heard? Because like we've talked a lot about what you do, a little, not really much about what I do, but I did talk in the last podcast a bit about what I do. But that is actually something interesting. I find that the center line has a lot to do with love. So when you're aligned, so it's like you could say like the Tao is the mother of heaven and earth. So you're above, you have heaven, below you have earth. And the mother, like if you connect the both, which is the center line, which for yoga is like this important meridian, and for Chinese medicine is important meridian, and for Tibetans important meridian. So that really helps us connect that meridian, and I think that's a nice commonality where you can say, there's a lot of traditions which which kind of talk about this center, which of course, you know,
Right.
in Chinese is center of the heart, yeah,
Right.
is this inner pillar,
Right.
in a
Yes.
steak, no, that's
Yes.
not
Yeah.
like beef steak, but like stake in the ground,
Yeah.
pole, there you are, pole. That's maybe why you went to Poland.
Ha 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 ha
Oh,
ha. You're
sorry.
so punny.
Oh, yeah, you're so funny. Yes, sorry about that. So what energy work have you heard of that you went, I'm not so sure about that? And you don't have to name it, but maybe you could just give a characteristic of, or what sort of energy work have you experienced like that showed you like you don't know the limits of energy work? You know what I mean? Like it's just this.
I don't know. I feel like I have a quite. I feel like I attract people who I really want to. Like, it's clear to me when this teacher is right for me. And then I guess vice versa, I'm not interested in the people who are not interesting to me. Have I met anyone that I felt was very, like, that I felt repelled from? Maybe, but I've forgotten them. Like,
Yeah.
I've never had very bad experiences. Let's put it this way. I've gone into, I don't know, for example, I took ayahuasca. And I know some people who have had bad experiences with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I had a very good shaman, and then I think I was very centered and aligned. So whatever, because ayahuasca basically it's a reflection of your inside, right? So even when like I had all these like demons come, and they look like Disney demons for me. And so, you know, because I was well briefed and did not act from fear, then my experience was good. So overall, I feel like my experiences have been very good. I do feel there are teachers who I feel like, okay, maybe ego-based or whatever. And then, or they have their own limitations. And I actually think every teacher has his or her own limitations, right? And so it's about recognizing, okay, they're human too, right? And I will learn from that and not from that, right? But overall, I haven't had very bad experiences.
I haven't. I've observed a friend. There was one. I don't know if it's still how active it still is, right? Especially with the current situation, but they turned it into a multi-level marketing thing, and I feel the reason I don't like that is because money tends to, when it gets involved in things, like you have to recruit your friends and they have to take the next class, and
Sure.
it becomes a little bit. I don't even know. I just going to say there's very much a danger of it being a little bit culty, and ego-based. Like I've spent this money on my level, and now I need to recruit this number of people to, and then if I don't, it's because I don't believe hard enough. And it's like, whoa, guys, that you know, yeah, no, take a step back.
I don't feel. I know these things exist and I wouldn't be interested in it, but I don't feel more judgmental towards NG workers of that caliber than, let's say, people who play with the stock market, right? So I feel like, okay, these people are going to attract the followers and the field, people of that vibration, and they will do their own thing until they learn the next lesson, right? So I don't...
It is very true. Like if you need the lesson, you're going to get the lesson. So if that needs to be part of your experience of going through, you know, that kind of approach, and you know, essentially it's like it's going to be working on the ego of, you know, have I got enough, and you know, I need to have the next level. And if I don't do the class, then I can't have the next level. And yet we're kind of taught, no, it just opens to you and it will just come to you. You don't have to worry. It's like, it's kind
too
of
simple
like,
for some people, right?
I mean, I suppose, I mean, it's true. I really think it is true. But then again, yeah, I don't know, maybe I just feel sorry for people. Okay, I need to get over that. I need to get
But
over
no,
that.
and I do think many people can enter a spiritual path that way too, because I think many people come searching when their material needs have problems. They have an illness, they have something they can't resolve. So at that point, they're really wanting answers, and they may be attracted to someone who will promise them answers very quickly, right? So, and hopefully they will soon grow out of that into something else, right?
Right. Right. Well, it's Dunning-Kruger, isn't it? Dunning-Kruger?
No, I don't know.
In psychology, I love, you see, one thing, you'd think that after getting into all this energy work first, I wouldn't like psychology, but I love psychology.
I love psychology, why not?
Psychology, well, yeah, I know, but I wasn't thinking like that. I was thinking, it's all, it's past tense psychology, that, the energy work is where it is. But like, you study psychology and you realize, Dunning-Kruger effect says people that know a little bit are very dangerous. They think they understand everything. Yeah, it's the experts
but we always only know a little bit compared to the vastness, right?
But that's the expression of an expert.
Right. I don't know.
Somebody who knows a little bit goes, yeah, I got it. You know what I mean? Yeah, got it. Yeah, been there, done that. And in kung fu, you have people they'll do 5 classes and they say, yeah, I got it. And it's like, yeah, you haven't, but okay. Good.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much like, good for you.
Yeah,
keep on.
Yeah, that's great.
You'll find out soon.
Let me know when you haven't, and you'll be back, and that'll be great because it's this wonderful rebirth that we all go through. So,
but I really believe in each teacher holding their own field and attracting people that are right for them. Right. I believe this more and more. Like I feel like I'm attracting particular students, and
yeah, I think so. I mean, well, it's like attracts like. I think it's like that resonance theory. That if you're just for people who might not know what resonance theory is, if you go into a room full of musical instruments and you take a tuning fork with a middle C and you hit the middle C, then the other instruments will respond physically. They'll play that note back to you without ever being touched. So it's like a vibration, knows vibration.
Right.
Was it? So it's like yogurt knows yogurt. I think that's what Richard Bandler would say. Yogurt knows yogurt. So, you know what? We have to talk more, but we have to at some point we have to
give the audience a pause.
Make it nice. But this has been. I think it's like, well, it's been fun, but it's like we decided to do this like 5 minutes before we were on live. So I think we should do this. It's like, yay.
Flash mob podcast.
But what I want to introduce also, just before we go, so I don't want to say to you, if you've got somebody you want to interview and you want to bring them up on the show, let me just do it. And I'll look at it as long as it's like, really about energy work, then do that. And I want to open that up to everybody. It's like send me videos, 40 minutes, around 40 minutes, 50 minutes, or even just the audio. And we can introduce it. It's like it a bit like energy work. Energy work is free format. Energy work is quite free, and there's an enormous amount of creativity. The rules are, there are no rules. The second rule is see the first rule. And I think also I've allowed the podcast to shift a little bit to it doesn't have to be exactly somebody's transformational story. It could be how we are experiencing the energy work we're doing and so on, because some people, they really don't know. and I feel like, and that's the thing I haven't really got to, is psychic kids, because I really want to talk about psychic kids and how we help how we can help.
Ah, I know who I can link you up with. But yeah, we'll talk about this afterwards.
You're lovely. Love you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And
Always fun.
I will talk to you after the show. So.
Okay.